Hi, everyone. I'm about to interview Narayan Annamalai. He is the GM and head of products of network services over at Azure from Microsoft. It's a fascinating discussion around not only just the capacity and the networking that Microsoft is building around Azure for AI infrastructure, but how they're packaging it and how they're making AI infrastructure much more available for everyone to be able to work on their particular miracles. We really offer an option and choices around how you can deploy your AI applications. So tune in. It's a really great discussion. And Narayan is a really nice guy. Narayan, thank you so much for coming on to the podcast. It's a pleasure. Actually, I've been looking forward to this after I heard your keynote earlier this morning. So thanks for being here, and also thanks for being on the podcast as well.
Of course. Thanks for hosting. I think this is a great event. I really enjoyed, talking today morning and having the chats with a lot of folks, like-minded people from the industry. It's a great opportunity, and thanks for having us.
Awesome. Well, great. Thank you for that. Yeah, I think a couple of things, I want to kind of dive into some of the topics that you brought up. One of the main reasons why we wanted to have Microsoft and yourself participate and to speak to everyone was that there's two kinds of major decision points that are going along. One is buy versus sell. The other one is really kind of focused around accessibility, and I think the buy and sell kind of fits into accessibility around AI infrastructure, because we know that every industry is working on their own particular miracles that they can actually deliver to the economy. And so the more that we can make this technology accessible to them, the more miracles we're going to start seeing, across not only just across, obviously, the U.S., but across the world. So I love that, what you really focused on is all the different ways in which a company can access AI infrastructure. So do you want to talk a little bit, to that? And I know you spent a good amount of time also talking about network infrastructure to that, which is really key and fundamental. We'll get to that in a second.
Yeah, sure. I think, like you said, our goal is to enable organizations and industries to adapt and make use of the AI technologies that are there. While it is super exciting, it's a daunting task if you have to put the responsibility solely on the innovators to worry about the infrastructure, to worry about building a reliable, failure resilient, architecture. That's not easy to do for anyone. I mean, you would have to have a deep investment, not just from a financial standpoint, also from an expertise standpoint. And that's where we saw the opportunity to serve customers by making the cloud as the bed or the infrastructure for AI innovation to happen, right? And it's really, I think we are starting to see a good response of that as well, because as we look at, just for ourselves, building this infrastructure, even though we have built it for regular compute and storage for years, it was a different challenge doing it for AI.
Yeah.
Right? So as I was talking about it, just the sheer number and capacity and the number of, wires and devices that we have to interconnect to get this all running and working is quite a bit of task. And that couldn't even be done with our resourcing that we have. We have to use AI even for diagnosis and ticketing and remediation. So imagine, if this has to be done by everyone, they'll be spending cycles on that and not on innovating with AI.
Yeah.
Right? So that is our goal, is to provide infrastructure in combining with partners in the field, right? We know that it's not just for us to solve this problem. We want to be a part of it. We totally recognize that customers would need, maybe this infrastructure to run hybrid, like on their on-premises, or even in other clouds, completely aware of that. We like to partner with, vendors, come up with, chips and, silicon, and we do our own custom silicon as well. But again, we would love to partner, provide all the possibilities and options to customers to choose from. So that has been the goal and the journey, and we're just starting, and it's already exciting, I would say.
Yeah. Well, a lot of things, you kind of all of a sudden there's a whole bunch of synapses firing off in my head, after that.
Yeah.
One is that I think you guys already invested about $100 billion in that infrastructure. What I kind of found, fascinating about that is that when you didn't mention this in your talk, so I want to kind of make sure, that maybe this isn't just kind of a rumor out there, but it's actually factual. Is that Microsoft is building about 1 million GPU cluster is kind of the end goal of where you kind of see that building, and so you're clearly well on the way of doing that. Is that kind of
I mean, I wouldn't put any specific number onto it, but as are the cluster sizes becoming bigger and bigger? Absolutely. Right? I mean, so remember the whole ChatGPT was trained on Azure infrastructure, right? That already needed thousands of GPUs put together into a cluster, right? So, and there are a lot of other customers, in size like that who want to run their training models in Azure, right? And the numbers they've been asking is only going up.
Yeah.
So, well into the thousands, and it may reach these numbers that you quoted, but our goal is to kind of innovate to meet those needs, right?
Yeah, the innovation piece, so that separation between kind of the innovator and the infrastructure is really fundamental and important. So on day one, we had a keynote from Svi Gal from Memorial Sloan Kettering Cancer Center, and that was... and we're doing a lot more of those presentations where it really talks about the outcomes.
Yes.
And so the key thing that Svi was talking about is that him and his team, he's the CTO of that cancer research center. They put in the AI infrastructure so that the kind of researchers and the data scientists didn't have to, and that they can enable them to advance their research. And so what he presented yesterday was nothing short of astounding and uplifting and inspiring. When he basically says is that for particular cancers, for example, like rectal cancer, there's 100% curability.
Wow.
So you're cured.
Yeah.
And then he looked at basically cancer research. Which they feel like they have actually advanced that by at least 15 years by being able to model the DNA of various different mammals. Yeah. And now they can actually do what ifs and analysis on how treatments will impact the DNA of these particular devices. So they think they've advanced that like some 15 years. He gave one slide, which was an amazing slide, 5-year prediction of cancers that will be curable, like almost a vaccine for cancer. So prostate cancer was in there. Also, thyroid cancer was on that list. Melanoma was on that list. Pancreatic, was on that list. And these are illnesses, that afflict so many people, and like all families, get inflicted by something, and that. It's that kind of outcome that I think what you're doing and Microsoft is doing is to enable, where you can separate that innovation from the infrastructure, make the infrastructure much more available so that everyone can work on their miracles, whatever their industry sector, actually is.
Yeah. No, that's just amazing to hear. I mean, there's nothing better that can come out of it other than something so directly impacting human lives in a positive way, right? I mean, and that's like you said, that's when we feel satisfied that we're a part of the solution, right? Where innovation is going to happen in healthcare industry a whole lot, a lot of other industries, especially for disabilities. Microsoft, had some projects where we do this, yearly Hackfest or whatnot, and project came out of that where AI for blind, where it could be the eyes for people who can see. AI can literally translate what they were seeing into words and text and describe it to them. And it just that takes away that and make them all equal. And such stories are inspiring. And what is more important is knowing that people who are innovating, like I said, have different needs, different models. We all know about the large language models as the most popular ones with ChatGPT, but each industry has a very different model, a different need. Sometimes it's deep learning, sometimes it's just ML. And And all of these have different characteristics and what they want from an infrastructure, right?
Yeah.
They all don't need Blackwell chips. They all don't need the same size as as everyone else. So it's custom. It is, and that's what, and they all need different apps to interact with. So even though we think about GPU, for AI innovation, it's not just that. It's about what are the other services and apps that need to work with the data that is being either trained or inferenced from. So it's a whole ecosystem of applications, and cloud kind of provides that infrastructure all in one place, because the customers are already leveraging cloud services and cloud technologies and cloud apps for many things.
Yeah.
From data intelligence and BI and data mining. Now combine that with, if they can run also their training models and inferencing on the cloud, they just have everything in one place to leverage. So they can focus more on innovation rather than worrying about where do we go for this, where do we go for that. It's kind of a full-fledged solution from an infra standpoint, which is what I think is incredible.
Yeah. But I love the whole, clearly, there's nothing better than improving the human condition. We're having this talk, at the summit. You hear a lot of the human condition behind us, like it's folks laughing and having a great time, and that's kind of like what life is really all about. So, maybe a couple of other points. So, all right, great. So we're kind of separating that infrastructure, from the innovators. I think that's really super. You're right. There is a kind of a learning curve that has already been overcome, from many that are actually utilizing the cloud. You guys, what I mean you guys is like Azure. So you see lots of different applications, AI applications being used. I think what a lot of kind of executives, whether they're architects or designers within large corporations don't understand are what is going to be requested of the infrastructure in order to support AI applications. You see that, already, and I think, and you're right, the world is going to be either a hybrid, a multi-cloud kind of world, so is there any insights that you might be able to provide to help people get ready? Because just anecdotally, remember before AI, we used to build infrastructure to size it based upon peak traffic. Right, and we would size it on peak, and then we know that's how much capacity we need. How is that going to change?
Yeah, I think it's not going to be that easy because of it. Based on use cases, like you said, it's going to be different. In some use cases, it's all about how fast the network is and how much GPU cycles you're using, and sometimes it's about the memory that you have on the GPUs, how much of a read write that you're doing. So it's difficult to put one metric to say that is what people who are building should worry about. I think it is either your app so well that you can custom create your infra to work best for that, and it's obviously definitely going to work for some people. But if you don't know how it's going to be changing, how the landscape is going to be changing, instead of spending so much time trying to get that all so tuned, use an infra already available and see how you can leverage that, because there's a huge initial capex investment to put in to even get an AI infrastructure up and running, right? Whereas once you go to the cloud, it becomes an OpEx kind of a discussion, right? So you light it up and see how it goes, and you can make the tuning necessary. And if you're really waiting for the latest chipset, someone else is going to make that available for you rather than you having to go chase that. Because one thing is, we are all capacity constrained. If you ask me, the number one challenge that we are all facing is capacity and resourcing, right? There's a long list for getting these latest chips, and not that getting them, but also installing them, getting them deployed, putting everything else, getting power, putting the cooling units, building it out. That takes time, right? So it's better, people can leverage, existing infrastructure for that. But if they do really, really want to start small, they know exactly their app size and what the apps want. Having their own setup is not bad at all. And this could be a lot of learnings and papers and white papers they can read from and from many different providers, not just Microsoft, but everyone else shares these best practices, which I think people can use to build that.
Yeah. So I think what I hear is one is that you could be kind of forward leaning into the cloud to gain an understanding of how those applications may behave. The other on infrastructure, the other thing is flexibility is going to be really fundamental and really important, in this next business cycle, as we all really don't know. And so there's an experimentation phase that we're kind of in to see how these are going to behave as well. And that's also where a cloud-based service comes in really handy, because you could be a lot more flexible there than sizing, scaling, and building.
Right.
The other thing that I was kind of fascinated by with your discussion too is that it seems like AI infrastructure for all the cloud providers has been kind of a discontinuity from previous generations where it was very general purpose computing. And everyone kind of knew, okay, we have we have general purpose, we have CPUs, we know how to build them. We can go to white box and networking and build our own networks, put our own operating systems on top of those, and we can build those out and save a lot of money, kind of mitigate the margins from the IT suppliers. This is not like that. This is more specialized, like that, So, and that's a challenge for everybody, not just the cloud providers, but also for the enterprise, space.
Right.
So,
yeah, I mean, yes, I think the backend networks, needs to work in a certain way to provide fast connectivity and higher bandwidth. It's not totally new. Things like InfiniBand has been there for years now. I mean, even within Azure, we have used it for storage, to compute, and a lot of other instances like that has been in use. So there is general usage of that. But yeah, I mean, you're right that not everybody was doing all of these things, right? It was this general purpose, regular networking and compute and whatnot. But I think it's just a matter of time. Like I said, it's probably we're in the early stages where this looks different and new. But over time, I mean, there's going to be more expertise that's going to come on the field on this as well.
Sure.
And it may not be that special or that different, but people to understand or do in scale, right? So I just feel like this is what people talked about cloud, 10 years, 12 years ago. How do you do networking on the cloud? I know how to do networking on my data center. I buy the routers, I connect them. I know how to configure the firmware. I know how this works. I know how to create networks and VLANs. How do you do that on the cloud?
Yeah.
Then now no one asks that question anymore.
Yeah.
So
for sure. Yeah. You're right. Because there was we're kind of at design pattern discontinuities, right? You know, so it's like we're looking for what is the new design pattern here?
Right.
I think we have it in if you're going to build an AI infrastructure, you're going to do a GPU cluster. So there's design pattern, NVIDIA is turn that into a $3+ trillion business, you know? So we understand that, but how we now leverage public cloud, AI services. Yeah. So we're in kind of an education phase right now, for that, as well. So, maybe one or two other things on the networking side of things. So you had, you had that one slide that showed 60 data centers, and those are all the geographic areas, all across the planet. Yeah. 275,000 miles of fiber. So two things on that. One is that it's interesting. So David Kahn over at Sequoia wrote that blog a couple of months back, right? The $600 billion question around how do you get the return on investment on AI, because it's not just the hardware, it's everything you mentioned before, right? It's obviously it's the energy, it's the cooling, it's the data centers, it's the buildings themselves, the people. So there's all that. But then, all right, and then people can go through the calculations. Okay, well, is it going to be 600 billion? Will be greater, what have you. But I think back to 1996, 1995, when we were laying a lot of that fiber, and I think, it's the world got benefit of that, by just seeing the internet scale grow and scale, and it become a major force in the global economy. I have a sense that this would be a lot quicker a return on that investment. Right. And what's fabulous, to my mind, is that investment we made in fiber back then, obviously we added to it, but now it's also paying secondary dividends. And I think this investment that we're making, as well, will have a very large echo effect for generations to come. Yeah. So anyway, is there a question in any of that, or is that just me kind of telling you what I'm thinking?
No, I think I share the same, sentiment as you. You have to invest 10x to get 100x in return of investment, I would say. So, and I think we have to do that because we are at a very early stage of, if you think about the percentage of application that is AI enabled today, I don't know the numbers. I'm sure it'll be in a single digit, like in probably like low single digit number, right?
Yeah.
And if you see where we are going to go 5 years from now, 10 years from now, this will become the norm where every app is going to become smarter. Every app is going to actually will want to have AI capabilities enabled with it. There'll be new apps also coming up that you never thought about before. So all of this needs the infrastructure. They need the GPUs, they need storage, and they need CPUs to go with it. They need the apps to be. So I think the whole cycle is going to start, and then it's going to grow in strength year over year. So I think the investment is, we all believe it's worth it, and it's also needed to actually create a meaningful impact, right? Because like I said, even with all the investments today, I don't think we are comfortably meeting the dates and deadlines of when we want to have this available because of constraints that we can overcome. So there is no reason to slow down because the demand is only increasing. So I think all of the investment is totally valid. And like you said, our back-end network infrastructure has been built over decades now. I mean, even before the cloud, we didn't like you said. We build these networks even to have Windows servicing, edge caching, and Bing and whatnot. The network has been built over many years.
Yeah,
and the cloud really took it to another level, right? Where we really needed inter-region connectivity that we had to expand the network globally, right? And now it's coming to to help us with AI, but we are also investing more in network infrastructure. As like I was saying, we need to connect these GPU clusters, even bare metal GPUs that could be outside the public cloud, and if they have to be ingressing or a huge amount of data back into the cloud, you need strong fat pipes.
Yeah.
So we are still investing more on networking infra as well. So
yeah,
I feel as a networking person, I feel like it's a very exciting time in the networking field because we are really at the center of AI innovations, providing the infrastructure for it. So yeah, I think the investment is well worth it.
Yeah. So maybe one last thing before we break, so you're the GM of kind of the networking, services over at Azure. So what are maybe the top 2 or 3 priorities that you have over the next 12 to 24 months?
Yeah, it's pretty easy in the sense that you'll find it funny. It's not going to be specific to networking. This is a company-wide priority that we have, right? And no doubt, number 1 is security. The whole company is focused on secure future initiatives, right? So providing AI is important. Providing secure, responsible AI is even more important, right? So security at every layer, security at every software code that you release, publish, making that top-notch enterprise grade. That is the number 1 priority that we are all working with. The second is, continuing to have quality improvements, right? Like I said, there would be failures, and we don't optimize for no failure, but we do optimize for quick recovery. The ability for us to detect anything that is going wrong, the ability to identify exactly which system failed, the ability to automatically address that system and get moving is important. We kind of wrap this as quality, right? In the cloud, we optimize for recovery, we optimize for diagnosis and troubleshooting, right? So that's the second most important thing, and it directly implies to AI infrastructure, because that is where we need the highest quality as well, so we can focus more time on building and not debugging failures, right? And the third is capacity.
Yeah,
we're really working on trying to provide the capacity that is needed for our customers, both existing ones and new customers who are waiting. It's all about capacity provisioning. So those 3 would be my top 1, 2, 3 priorities that we have.
Yeah, you are so in sync. We did a polling leading up to our spring meeting in Dallas, and then this one leading up to the fall. And we basically there's one question around, okay, what's blocking you? What are the inhibitors? security, reliability, capacity.
Yeah.
So you're working on the right things.
Good.
Not that I
Awesome.
was in doubt. But it's like you can take a little rest assured. That's the same from this community as well.
Yep. Awesome. Great to hear that. And thanks for having me again.
Narayan, this was like so great to have you. Thanks so much for like sharing, so much about what you're learning and also like what Microsoft is doing in Azure as well.
Yep.
So thank you so much.
It is exciting times. Thank you.
Awesome. You're welcome.